Thank you for everyone who has joined us for the City of South Fulton presentation on solid waste. I would ask that everyone please put yourself on mute. Ms. Howell, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started. And just to let everyone know, we'll go through the presentation. It's roughly 10 minutes long. And then after the presentation, we will entertain questions. Please raise your hand in the Zoom ability to raise your hand. And Ms. Howe will call on you at that time. We'll ask you to unmute your mic and give you approximately 2 minutes. Once we go through, anyone who has questions, we'll be happy to follow up and take additional questions. So this meeting today is intended for residential input sessions. If you are a business owner, do construction, or a service provider, we will schedule some additional meetings shortly to address business specific concerns and questions. Or if you are a service provider or represent a service provider, how you can participate in any upcoming processes. Again, this is an input meeting. And just to give a little direction of some potential changes, but nothing has been decided currently. And that's where your input is very important. I would also like to state in the beginning, and I'll readdress it towards the end, upon conclusion of this meeting, a survey will pop up. Once you hit leave meeting, if you wait a second, a survey will pop up. If not, you can find that survey on our website, and I will address that in this presentation. Thank you. As a service, the solid waste input meeting, the direction of this meeting is for the residential. And as I mentioned, we would just request that you raise your hand when the question portion begins. For any additional information, we will put out any of that information on social media, but one of the easiest places to find upcoming meetings would be on the city's website, which is noted on the slide at cityofsouthfultonga.gov. If you scroll to the bottom, there will be a calendar which will have additional dates when they're added. The City of South Fulton is seeking input on current concerns involving solid waste collections and services being offered, requested services to be provided, understanding of the current program and challenges, and understanding opportunities of a citywide program. Currently, the city is under a bit of a free market model. It's not 100% free market. We do have a list of providers that residents can select. We do understand that not all providers will service all parts of the city. And those are some of the areas that we are looking to address as we move forward. But under the current model, residents are required to negotiate costs and services with the provider. Services are limited based on scale of operation, so not all service providers provide additional services beyond household trash collection, curbside, and we'll address some of those additional services in this presentation. Multiple vendors may operate within a single neighborhood, and we are aware that there may be a difference in cost and schedules within the neighborhood or within your geographical location. And those are also areas that we would like to get input, and we also are looking at addressing. And the last one is the accountability and customer service. We often hear back from our residents of some issues that they are given when it comes down to customer service. And we definitely want to work on a better system or work with the residents in order to achieve better accountability and customer service. In the solid waste program, some of the items that the city is looking at, one second, is to provide for an increase in services, also to maintain a cleaner appearance of the streets. We have had quite a bit of feedback on litter, not only within the residential areas, the subdivisions, the streets, the neighborhoods, but also on the thoroughfares and corridors. And this is an area that the city is currently moving towards, enhancing our litter control, but also as part of our overall solid waste program objectives. Um, Both service and litter are top concerns that we're looking at addressing. Also standardizing the collection. And what I mean by standardizing the collection is within the subdivisions, the neighborhoods, or the residential roads, that whatever provider we can assist the residents with is a more standardized collection where on your particular street, right now there are some neighborhoods, some streets that have multiple providers servicing on multiple days. And we're looking at a more standard uniform look for the community where the service provider, for example, if your day is a Tuesday, that everybody on your street will be picked up on the same day with standardized looking trash cans and receptacles. That way, when Wednesday comes, if your trash is not picked up, that we could assist on the missed pickup schedule to get everything collected and ensure that there is additional customer service available for such events as a missed pickup. The accountability and enforcement I'll get to in the next slides. Under accountability, the city will look to act as one model as overseeing the providers that will service your community, your residents, your subdivisions. In such setup, the customer will have several options as far as communication, as far as services, setting up a number for a customer service center and also setting up a number through the city. The customer service center will address all curbside collections and will work with, adding any new services. If you are a family that may need additional carts or cans because the 196-gallon container is not enough for your household and you need a second one, that there is numbers to call. Also, as I mentioned, the missed services, or if there's additional services that will be provided, such as bulk waste and other services, if you need them, if it's not already built into the program, to provide our customers with a number. As part of a program moving forward, regardless of the direction, we would like to work with the providers to provide all information on the cart itself, which we envision as a waterproof sticker to be placed on the lid of the cart that would tell you exactly what day your pickup is. That way, if you're a new resident or an existing resident, you are aware of your services and what is provided. We are also looking at bringing on a rapid response collection team for those events that need immediate response. As far as enforcement, the city will assist and enforce compliances of all claims caused in the process of collection. An example that I would use would be if a service provider vehicle damages a mailbox or something on the street, whether they leak hydraulic fluid, there would be the ability for the city to assist with getting those items corrected. Right now, the current situation that we are aware of is the resident would have to contact the provider directly, fill out whatever claims, forms, and data to get that. We're looking at doing that on behalf of the residents if we move forward with, one of the models that we are considering. Penalties and enforcement for noncompliance due to litter or illegal storage of garbage upon properties. Again, looking at, tougher enforcement for those that are in non-compliance, leaves litter properties or illegal storage of garbage upon the properties, looking at better ways to work with the residents to work with those properties that may be across the street or down the street or on the entrance of your neighborhood for enforcement. And I will say, in fairness, we do have code enforcement currently, but we're looking at litter and illegal storage of garbage a little bit more to better serve our residents. Also, enforcement of routes and collection time. This is where I mentioned having those standardized times and days for your entire street or neighborhood. That way, everybody knows when to be collected, and also when the cart should be pulled back up to the house. That way, you can continue to live in a clean and litter-free environment. Residential services, some items that we have heard from residents that may not be currently offered, but we would like to explore and get feedback on what services our residents are looking for, so that we can provide the options of services beyond the weekly household curbside services, such as recycling, leaf and limb removal, bulk waste removal, continue to expand upon our community drop-off events for non-curbside waste. And a good example of that would be the paint can, some construction debris, possibly tires that you may have on your property that you need to dispose of. These are all efforts to work with our communities to ensure the reduction of litter when these programs are not provided. The maintenance and litter control, it again changes to our current ordinance to enhance litter control measures. By standardizing services, neighborhoods will have a single pickup day and uniform carts. Cost of the service, and again, we're just looking for input as far as services required and how to fix our current model while exploring the standard models that other cities and counties provide. And we understand that we want to get the cost as low as possible by providing the most services. And those things would be obviously shared back with our community as we continue to move forward with it. And I could definitely share some general costs in this presentation. Of course, the volume of services requested would be reflected in the cost. And if the city decides to move under being in essence, the provider providing the program, for our residents, we will look at billing the property owner to reduce administrative fees, look at doing that either annually or semi-annually. Some requests that will impact the cost of the program, this is just an example, is the yard debris services, bagged versus unbagged. Depending on what communities you have lived in the past, this is a very common service to provide for yard debris pickup along with your weekly trash service. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the environmentally friendly way of picking up leaf and grass clippings and also some small limbs is by placing them into paper bags along the curb and having the provider pick those up. Another method that is very nice to have during the fall season when all the leaves are falling off the trees is to be able just to pile the leaves at the curb of your property. And then at a time, a truck would come by, a vacuum truck, and suck up the leaves. And that way you don't have to spend all that extra time bagging. That would have to be something that would be coordinated because as we know, if that leaf pile sits there too long and we have some adverse weather, 2-3 days later, that pile will no longer be a pile. So that would be something that would be coordinated with the residents if that is a service that the residents would like to see and provided by the city. As I mentioned, a survey will pop up at the end of this presentation. If not, through our website, you can download it. Excuse me. And this is simply asking for the services that the residents are requesting. Not necessarily if you're looking for anything different, but just the services that everyone would like to see, such as, again, continue with the household curbside trash removal. If weekly recycling is requested, yard debris, and then there's some space along the bottom in case there's any services that you have seen other solid waste programs provide that we have not provided or have not listed, I should say. In a minute, I'll give an opportunity if there's any elected officials to start off by providing any additional information or comments. I did mention the cost, and an example would be the bag service and also the collection of the leaf and limbs at curbside. That it is under current projections, it's looking like a service such as that would be roughly $1.80 per month as far as an additional cost. If the residents would like to see us put together any type of package that allows for the collection of yard debris. Right now, it's looking like that would be approximately $1.80 per month to the household services. So that's just an example. Again, we're not looking at doing anything. We fully understand that cost is a factor, and we would want to be able to provide a very detailed cost sheet for the residents, in which at that time we would solicit additional input. We also are aware that there may be some seniors on this call, and our senior program is very important to the city to be able to provide services such as the backdoor services for those that need it. Those are also items that we will be taking into account and strongly considering with anything as we move forward, or any way that we move forward with just revising the current program to ensure that any provider selected does provide those services needed by our seniors and other people that physically cannot move those carts to the curb. In an earlier presentation, we had a person bring up the question about backdoor service for those that may not need the service, but would like it as a convenience. And certainly we're looking at exploring those two, the difference between those that absolutely need it and those that would just want it for convenience. So your input is very valuable to us. So with that, let me start and see if there's any of our elected officials on the line that would like to address the audience before we get into the residential comments. Ms. Howe, is there any council members on the line?
Yes, we have council member from District 6, Mr. J.C. Sebastian on the line, as well as Councilwoman District 3, Helen Willis.
Thank you. If we could start with Mr. Sebastian and then go to Ms. Willis, or Councilmember Willis. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, District 4. Mr. Toms, thank you very much for doing this presentation. I know there have been several that you've done. And I know there have been a lot of concerns throughout the city by several residents with regards to the whole notion of the one vendor solution. But I just want to again reiterate that that's not the direction, hopefully, that we're going. And that many of us are trying to support the zoned approach, where we'll maintain competition within our city, but also make it streamlined so that your neighborhood only have one supplier actually collected in your specific neighborhood or your specific street. Certainly, as a city, we do have some challenges with litter, and we're hoping that this program would also keep that down. So again, just want to thank you for the presentation and to encourage the citizens and to continue to stay engaged, and thank you guys for taking your time out to attend. If there's any questions, my contact information can be found on the city's website, and I'll also drop it in the chat as well. Thank you, guys.
Councilmember Willis, if you're there and would like to speak, please unmute yourself. Okay, with Ms. Howell, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Councilwoman Willis is still on mute, and I currently don't have any hands that are raised for questions.
Okay. Is there anyone?
Now I have one.
Okay.
Kimberlyn Minkins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am new to the state of Georgia, and this is totally new to me. However, my question would be, with the trash pickup in my residential neighborhood specifically, it's only once a week. However, that really isn't a factor for me because it's just my husband and I. But for homes or residents that has families, a family of 5, a family of 7, with trash pickup being once a week, and for a period there, we didn't have trash pick up for about 4 weeks. Needless to say, the trash was everywhere in the neighborhood, blowing down the street, all in our yards. And moving forward, I don't know if that's even something that can be handled. I understand things happen that we can't control. However, with only 1 day a week, there has to be another option in the future for that not to happen. We're talking about a month that we didn't have any trash pickup and no response. We really didn't get an answer from our service provider as to a resolution. It was just leave a voicemail and nothing happened. So
Thank you for that question. Right now, the current model, and I know you mentioned that you're new to the city of South Fulton, and a lot of cities, the predominant model is it's a service provided through the city, whether they contract that out to a service provider and you are the customer of the city, or the city is the one actually providing the collections. In our current model, the residents have the ability to choose from a predetermined list and enter into a service agreement with that provider. So in the situation you mentioned, yes, you're right. The resident would be contacted that provider that they contracted with for any of those missed collections. And, at this time, it's difficult for the city to intervene because we are not the ones that are contracted with that service provider. So we are looking at other abilities and models to be able to work directly with the residents to find a good solution for the removal of their trash. For those families that need additional, have additional needs, is based on the size of their family or how much household trash they produce. Having more than one day a week is difficult because it would have to be, in most models, it would have to be everybody on that street. It would add a lot of cost if that truck had to come out just for 2 or 3 homes that needed the second day. So the more cost-effective solution is to provide a second or potentially a third garbage cart for them to bring to the curb on their select day. Most of the carts are 96-gallon carts, which, I know some people will produce more and some people will produce less. So I do know that we have a few residents that currently have 2 and 3 carts just due to the volume that they would produce. So that would be the typical solution for those families. Right now, under the current model, if anyone needs it, I would highly recommend them reaching out to their provider. But that is definitely something that we are factoring into any programs moving forward. Thank you for your question.
thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Dex Dossman. If you would unmute, please.
Morning.
Good morning.
In reference to the question that was just asked, so how many cans will be allowed per residence? Since I have 2 residents on one property, I'm a little concerned about how many cans are going to be allowed. And is there an extra can fee?
So right now, so it sounds like, correct me, is this a duplex?
No, it's actually 2 separate houses on one property.
2 separate houses on one property. Okay. And currently, without mentioning the provider, are you allowed to have more than one can at the property?
We do. We pay extra.
Right. And that sounds like the typical provider response. And obviously anything moving forward, we understand that people will need more than one can or cart. And right now, just due to labor, most of the providers are trying to move towards a system in which they just grab the can in an automated fashion and go. So absolutely, to answer your question directly, yes, anything the city does will allow for additional cans and carts to be picked up curbside. And in your situation, obviously, because there's more than one resident on that property, that we would look at that and work with the property owner.
Okay. I do have one other question or concern.
Yes, sir.
Currently, our collection day is on Friday. And since we've been here for the past 5.5 years, I've always hated Friday. Friday is not a great day to pick up trash when the majority of your trash is collected or put into the cans over the weekend. So would there be a better day for us, hopefully, than Friday to pick up trash?
I'm currently on a Friday pickup also where I'm at. Typically, once the routes are put into consideration, most are trying to efficiently design the routes because they can only pick up so many based on the number of trucks and labor on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. So a lot of times Friday is a date that is utilized. So something that we could factor in, but at this point, there's really no guarantee that Friday would not be a valid day of the week. I do know sometimes when things get backed up, people on Fridays tend to get the short end of the stick, and that would be my complaint on a Friday versus the day of the week. And I know with most service provider contracts, if they're unable to pick up on a Friday, usually they're trying to pick it up on Saturday. But definitely something that we could put into consideration to see if a Monday through Thursday schedule would work, with Friday being the missed pickup kind of makeup day. But it really all depends on the workload and schedule. We are a city of roughly 107,000 people. So, the 5-day-a-week model is probably one that would be considered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Annette Cooper.
Thank you. I joined a bit late, but did I hear the city council person who spoke say that the community prefers to have competitors instead of one person handling it? Is that a general consensus, or that's just his opinion?
I'll let him speak, but what we're hearing is of course, being a city over 100,000, we're going to have many, many opinions. And that's the main reason for this presentation, is to allow all our residents an opportunity to voice their opinion. So what our council are hearing is, of course, differences of opinion. Some people want to move to a new model. And of course, there's always going to be a few people, or more than a few people, that are happy with the services that are currently provided. So I'll allow Mr. Sebastian, or Councilmember Sebastian, to clarify anything if you would like.
Thank you, sir. What I was trying to explain is that we have a city that's very large geographically. And part of the challenge towards a cost when you have in the current model is that if I have a vendor who's over here in Cedar Grove, and that same vendor has a customer in, say, Walden Park, that person has to come to me, and then they have to make their way across the district to Walden Park and District 2. That's a more costly undertaking than if that vendor was concentrated and his or her responsibility was just to collect in the Cedar Grove area. Just to collect in one area by one vendor is the thing that would keep costs down, would keep the multiple vendors off of our street every week, and keep the multiple vendors out of our neighborhoods every week. So again, part of what we're talking about is having a zoned approach, select several zones across the city, and to be able to have a vendor responsible for a zone. We haven't decided yet how many zones they're going to be, but that model will sort of keep multiple vendors working in the city, right? and we'll still keep vendors around who can more or less compete for the business still without having multiple vendors on your street or in your neighborhood. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. But my point is, we have had multiple vendors and they are horrible, all of them.
Right?
There have been too many. So how do we work with getting proficient, efficient, and proper vendors? Because the vendors that we currently have, you would not like to see the reviews on all of them. If you're a new resident moving in here, you're trying to pick one, it's like picking from a bunch of bad apples. There's none of them. And people have been changing like every month, every 6 months, every 3 months. They can't wait until their contracts are ended because none of the vendors currently in my community, right, let me stick to where I live. I live in District 7. None of them provide good service. None. So I like the idea of probably the zone and the public. Yeah, more than one person coming in. I like the idea of one person being in your community, but my choice would be having a good service, a reliable, efficient service. We are paying for it, so we need to get proper services. I'm not one to pay less to get cheaper things. If I have to pay for it, I'm willing to pay for it. But when I pay for something, I want what I paid for.
I'm in 100%. I'm in 100% agreement with you, Ms. Cooper. You know, we live here too as council people, so we have the same challenges as every other resident have with our service. But if you recall, one of the bullets on Assistant City Manager Tom's slide was accountability. Right now, the people who are operating in the footprint, they have no accountability to the government. And that's why we are coming with a program, proposing a program that's going to be city control. Regardless of who is working in the footprint, they're going to be accountable and the city is going to be responsible for them. And so that's going to be a big part of this program, holding the suppliers who work in the city accountable for their work and their service to the community. Again, I don't think any one of us so much care what brand pick our garbage up. We want it to be collected on time. We want it to be collected well and not trash strewn all over the street in our neighborhoods and no leaky trucks. And we want it at a fair price. I think if we get those things and, you know, we do some additional services as Mr. Tom mentioned. And again, you know, if we do things like recycling, for example, I heard the concerns expressed about multiple cans, but keep in mind, if we recycle, you will have a different can and that will cut down on your weekly garbage bulk pickup as well. So just wanted to drop that in. But Ms. Cooper, you're absolutely correct. It's about holding the suppliers accountable for the service and the service at a good price.
Okay, and one other question. I saw when he was giving his presentation, he was talking about your yard waste being put in bags and so on. Is there going to be a limit to the amount of bags people are allowed to put out? Because that is one of the things that we've had with our providers. They limit the amount of, now when you break your leaves, you don't know how much bags you're going to get. But then they're going to say we're only picking up 2 bags or 3 bags or 4 bags, and that is, to me, is not acceptable. So in terms of looking for persons who are going to be held accountable, I think that is something that you need to look at. You're going to be able to pick up whatever yard waste that you have that day to pick up, regardless of how much bags it is, because that is the idea of keeping our properties clean for those people who don't want to put their things around their trees or whatever. But for those who want to put their leaves in bags or however you want to pick it up, the amount should not be an issue.
Thank you. I'll take that question. This is Donald Thomas, Assistant City Manager. When it comes to yard debris programs, there absolutely has to be a limit on the standard pickup that is included. So for a resident that may need to use 30 bags or some large number, a lot of programs have some type of add-on services. The standard for most programs is 8 bags weekly. For the bag, if we decide to go to the blow your leaves, rake your leaves to the edge of the property, and we will send a vacuum truck up, then that volume is much greater. And we definitely understand that during certain months like October, November, and even December, if you have a lot of trees on your property, you can rake them up today and 3 days later, you can have another large pile. So those are definitely services that I highly encourage you to fill out that form and add in that service. And I'm not sure if it was you or the person that had questions before you that mentioned that, there are certain services they are, as long as they get quality service, they're willing to pay for. Being able to provide large quantities of landscaping to be picked up more than the standard resident would more than likely be an additional fee that would be added. And of course, if you have a landscape provider and that's included or can be included at a cheaper rate, then by all means, we would, certainly encourage that. But we would love to be able to provide additional services such as the eight bags per week, and also picking up the leaf pile at the curb. And oftentimes that also includes a brush pile also. But again, it's intended for the standard user. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Antoinette Edwards.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is actually a follow-up to what Councilperson Sebastian mentioned earlier about accountability. So, of course, right now, we have no accountability with the vendors. And for those of us who only have one vendor, we don't have any recourse in terms of should anything happen. So I just wanted to understand, what are some of the tools that the city has in its toolkit for accountability or service level metrics that they plan on employing with the vendors going forward for this program to really work?
Thank you for that question. Let me start by saying I've been working in city and state government for approximately 28 years and have worked and rolled out 4 different solid waste programs. And I will confess that the majority of them already had a program in place. City of South Fulton has definitely some opportunities here, being a city of only 5 years, and this would be the first time the city will be taken on such a undergoing ability to provide some type of solid waste program to our residents. But with that said, the accountability, when the city is the person that is working with the provider, it's kind of a different scale, because we are paying that bill on behalf of the resident on a monthly basis to the provider, and then collecting that based on whatever fee schedule we have to the residents. So by doing that, we are dealing with a much higher level within the provider to get things addressed. The other thing is the city understands that sometimes the provider cannot turn that truck around instantly for that missed cart. So within the model that we are exploring, we are looking at what I put in that slide as the rapid response team, that once we get that call in, if we cannot get that garbage truck to come back to that one house in that neighborhood, we will have smaller vehicles that we can dispatch within the business day to get out there, simply grab your cart, drop off another cart, and satisfy your request. Also, there are times that the provider, the large truck that picks up the household trash, could damage your cart and make it where it's either unoperable or just difficult for the resident. And we would like to have that service where, within 24 hours, we can drop off a new cart and haul away the one that the wheel fell off or the lid fell off or some other damage to the cart. So that's where the accountability from providing better service comes in under the model that we are proposing, because it's more, direct billing through volume, that we will be able to manage the accounts because they're no longer dealing with 35 or 50,000 accounts. They're dealing with the city, which would be the account holder, and therefore responsible for providing those services. The extra layer is also each district has a council member, and we do have the two of our council members on here today. So that's an additional layer of access to address your issues. With also the city having a fixed location within our boundaries in which a lot of the operators do not. So, there's always the multiple approach of having the call center, the city phone number, and we are hiring a dedicated solid waste coordinator who is scheduled to come on board the 14th. And the crews underneath to address the litter. You would have the city council members to directly contact, as well as additional staff within the city to address your problem. So there will be more opportunity to reach someone to voice your concerns.
May I also suggest something for the city to consider?
Absolutely.
So I think that in terms of when you have like these large contracts, one of the things that will help is that if the vendor itself shares some financial responsibilities for missed service levels agreements. So maybe the city should consider, financial impact should you miss routinely like a service level metric, or even, almost like a review period for contract terms. So something where the vendor has some sort of financial skin in the game. Because if I think about this one vendor that's servicing my community now, there is absolutely no recourse for them. They could say, sorry, we'll do better next time. And then it's a continuous problem. So I think there needs to be some skin in the game from the vendor's perspective. And I think the things that you mentioned before are great, but they need to also be held to a more impactful bar.
I do appreciate those. In every contract between a provider and in a city government entity, there's always bond requirements, and there's also other service matrix within the contract. You got to remember too that the payment is paid, upon reviewing the bills, the complaints, and everything else. And again, being in this and directly overseeing it, for the past 15 years, the level of issues that we have under this current model, I have not experienced anything like this, just based on the complaints. And that is certainly one of the reasons why the city and the elected mayor and council are looking at other opportunities to be able to provide better services. But we do cover ourselves financially through bonds and other things through the provider. Thank you for your question.
Okay,
Thank you.
next is Donnie Perry.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? My question is this: is to talk about the MERT. I guess is that they call it? It's called a landfill, and the payment that people have to pay. I think that's why people are destroying trash along Merck Road and throughout the city, is because those fees. And I think we need to come up with a way where they can come there, but some way we all can share in the expense and not rely upon just the people who are dropping these things, all items off. Because I mean, we see mattresses, we see all these things along the highway. And I know that in I think it's Cartersville, they have one where people just come and bring stuff. And I think Paulding County had something as well, where they had a landfill where people could just drop their trash off. We just can't rely on it because people are not, we see they're not going to do the right thing. They're going to drop these items and they're going to ride and they're going to throw them side the road. So what can we do, or what is the city even looking at something in place to address that issue? Because you can't, you know, have you don't have cameras, so you don't know who's actually doing it. So, but if it's free and we all the citizens share in it, then because we all benefit from it, from the beautification and the aesthetic appeal. So, what can we do about that, or is there anything that we can do? And I'm addressing this to the city council as well as the coordinator of the who's been talking earlier.
Thank you for that question. I'll address that. So you're absolutely right. Litter is an issue, and that is definitely something we are looking at addressing. And one method that we're looking at is, convenience is the absolute solution. If people do not have to drive that to Merck Mile or drive it somewhere else, and has the ability as they buy a new mattress to dispose of it. Not everyone has a pickup truck. Not everyone has the ability to drive it to Merck Mile. So we certainly want to look at a ability for bulk collections, curbside, where at a certain time of the month, the residents are able to put out their trash. That way, your neighborhood doesn't constantly stay in a state of a pile of garbage at curbside, but also look at quarterly drop-off locations that would be 100% free for residents to within your community. We don't expect people who live on the Old National area to have to drive all the way out to FIB. We certainly don't expect people that live out towards FIB to have to drive to Old National. We are looking at locations to be able to put them within a reasonable distance to the communities, meaning multiple drop-off spots within the community, so that people can drop it off. Merck Mile is still something that we would love to see operational and manage. And so, right now Merck Mile is subsidized, so the fees that they are charging are below the cost of what it is to dispose of it actually. But let me address litter a little bit too. Is you're absolutely right. When people cannot find a convenient and cost-effective method, they'll throw it on the side of the street.
And sometimes they'll throw it out just because they're just plain lazy. So that's what I'm saying.
Right. That's the convenience of it. That's the convenience of it. But what I have found in my experience, when you come across those piles of tires, that is not just one random tire, but 30 or 50 tires that are dropped, or large areas of yard debris. Those typically are businesses that are charging a fee to dispose of the tires or the yard, but they don't want to go to a Merck Mile and pay, so they'll just drop it off somewhere else. We are addressing that differently in the program, but we also want to be able to provide for our residents that also need those services too. So, our litter is kind of bigger than just the resident that just occasionally has something to throw out, just based on the piles that we are seeing from area to area of our city. And that's where a different type of enforcement method needs to be in place. But, we're also looking at litter control, because we feel that if you see something, you should have the ability to say something. So looking at other methods of easy ways to report illegal dumping. That way, if you see it, we certainly don't want anyone to be directly involved. But if you can see it and report it, give us a good description. Most people have a cell phone with camera abilities to snap a picture. And we're also looking at some type of reward program where if you are able to report something that leads to a conviction, to have some type of reward for the person to give us that anonymous tip. So we're definitely open to every suggestion and exploring it, because we really want to make a dent in our litter. And again, thank you for your question and your suggestions.
Okay, next is Trina Wright.
Good morning. I have a two-part question. My first question is more of a comment. I've lived in my current home for the last 10 years, and my current trash vendor, I don't have any issues with them. Pickup is fine, customer service is fine, responsiveness is fine. So my question is, will you guys have the option of allowing me to opt out of whatever future state you guys are looking to implement? Because I wouldn't be interested in switching vendors.
Well, thank you for that question. If we do move forward with this method or this model, we simply could not allow anyone to opt out because the reason is to have a uniform service. So if and realistically, your price with your current vendor would probably dramatically increase if you are the only person in your neighborhood still using that service. It would be cost prohibitive for that truck to come down. So if we do switch to a model that is looking to service the entire neighborhood, it would be like several other city provide services where you would not be able to opt out, but we would be held accountable to you to ensure that you do not see any drop off in services. And there would always be that ability of your current provider maybe being the provider selected. So I hope I answered that question for you. Thank you.
Yes, so I have a second part question as well. And it's kind of piggyback on the previous caller before me about the litter around the city. And it's from your presentation, it sounds like all of the plans are future state plans, but of course, litter and trash and debris, as you stated, is an issue right now today. So I guess my question is, what plans or what does the Public Works Department have in place right now today to address some of the concerns from the city and the citizens? Because it is an issue. And like I said, I've been here 10 years and I've never experienced anything like this before. It's almost embarrassing. Like, I don't even want like family and friends coming to visit me because they're driving literally through a landfill of trash and debris across the city. So I guess my question is, I understand that this vendor selection is a future state opportunity, but what are you guys looking at to address the litter and trash today?
Thank you for that question. I'm going to answer that question, but then I have a follow-up question to you. So what the city is currently doing is we are revamping our litter program. And with that said, we have just recently, I believe council at the last meeting has authorized us to enter into a contract with a company that will send crews out under the coordination of our new solid waste coordinator to actively schedule roads to be picked up. So right now, we have not had the manpower to address the removal of the litter. And that has changed recently, where we have just entered into some new agreements for the manpower to actually pick up the litter along the side of the streets, in addition to bringing some individuals in house that we have not had before to actually manage the litter program. So hopefully in the next 60 days, you'll see a difference in it. We will also provide some additional automated forms where you can go in there and state, the roads that you see the litter on, maybe even provide a picture. That way we know what to expect when we get out there. And then we will have the manpower to go out there and address it. My follow-up question to you is, the litter that you're seeing, is that litter you would describe as illegal dumping, or just litter that tends to blow out of vehicles, or people just occasionally throwing a cup out of their car. What type of litter are you mainly addressing here? Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and move to the next question.
I will just say this: the most litter that I'm seeing, especially because I live in District 2, around the landfill, is
Okay.
the type things like the mattress or the household goods. I mean, every now and I walk the neighborhood quite frequently as well, and every now and then you might see a restaurant box or something like that. But those things, I mean, we kind of they're here and in between. But
Okay, so it's
mattresses and things.
Okay, so it's the deliberate illegal dumping that you were seeing.
Exactly.
During your travels around the city, have you ever come across to see a person actually doing the dumping?
No, I don't, because if I did, I would, take down the tag number. Or else I was at the Publix parking lot in Sandtown, and a guy was throwing stuff out in the parking lot, and I was just rolled on my window. I was like, really? Is this what you're gonna do? Just throw it out your window? And
we
just kind of shamed him. And he got out and he picked it up because
well, we do appreciate all our responsible residents, but yeah, the illegal dumping, that's the ones that these litter control and the response can actually address quickly, timely, and hopefully, have better enforcement by looking for any clues, as they dump. The harder one is the paper that blows out of trucks, or the person that feels the need to dispose of a fast food wrapper as they're driving down the street. Those are the ones that are, by a program that we're moving towards, is a little harder to address, but certainly something that we would be looking to implement the litter crews. And also, I think we believe in, well, not I think, I know we believe in providing additional education on the litter. Another thing that we're looking to explore in addition to our crews is, working with our local court system to impose higher fines. So when we do catch those people that are doing the litter, to make sure that they are held accountable. And I know some cities, some governments, have sentenced them to actually, in a safe manner, provided to actually, pick up the trash, instead of paying a fine, go out there one Saturday and pick up the trash. Again, these are just concepts that I've seen other communities do to hope to reduce litter.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Cheryl Stedman.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Thomas, for the presentation. It has been very helpful. My question is two-part. I'm relatively new to the South Fulton area. However, did you mention in a previous maybe session or earlier in the conversation when the city was actually going to make a decision on the model of service that it was going to implement? And go ahead.
Okay, if you want, I'll address that question, then we'll come to your second question.
Okay.
Right now, we're gathering the residential information. I will be presenting the findings of everything we're hearing from the residents to the city council, and I would like to think that within 60 to 90 days, we'll be able to come back to the residents with a more solid plan on timeframes and what services and what costs we are presenting. So I would love to believe that in the next 60 to 90 days, we'll be able to take all this information and put a little bit more meat on the bones to roll back out to the residents for another opportunity to ask questions and provide some additional feedback.
Okay, and thank you. My next question does echo the sentiments of the previous persons, my neighbors, with regard to the litter. I happen to be in an area of South Fulton where I don't see a lot of the bulk dumping. However, I am constantly seeing a lot of the litter on many of the main thoroughfares where people are dropping out trash. I actually had the opportunity to be behind a waste management disposal truck, and they did not secure the latch on the tarp for that, and trash was blowing off of the back of the truck. I understand that this is one of the things that you're hoping to address within the next 60 days, but is there any way to expedite the process? Because I do feel that, the litter is a bit out of control now. And if we're letting it sit an additional 30 to 60 days until there is something in place, we're going to have even more litter to deal with, which is very unsightly. That's all I.
Thank you. I would say on the truck that you saw dumping litter on the street, if in the future anyone that sees things like that, we need to certainly put out better information on how to address what you see. That way we can do enforcement. Most of those type of hauling companies, if we have any information on time, location, tag number, any type of GDOT number that may be on the truck, and that information is reported to our solid waste coordinator or even anyone in the police department, we could follow up with that. And oftentimes those providers will send someone back out to rectify the problem that their vehicles have caused. If not, the police department is able to cite them a fine for that. And of course, with those kind of companies, they don't want to be fined. So then hopefully they do a better job securing it. So with most of these litter issues, we need all the help we can get from our residents, businesses, other people, driving up and down the street for when they see something that we can address it. So I don't want to imply that, we don't want to do anything now, but I will honestly say we don't have the resources in place as of today to pick up every piece of, not every piece, but the big pieces of litter throughout the community. But we are staffing up currently to start addressing it, but we still need a good reporting method to know, because if that mattress is in your community, and for whatever reason, a public works vehicle does not go by and see it and no one reports it, it will continue to stay there. So we understand that we need a better method of reporting such items, and then have a better method to get out there quickly to clean it up.
Okay, next question or comment is Lamar Richardson.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm concerned about, you've answered quite a few of my questions already, but in this new model that you're planning, are you trying to put in some parameters as far as cost goes, cost range for residential pickup per month is going to be no matter who the provider is? And I have a couple other questions after that, if you can address that, please.
Yeah, so we fully understand that cost is a major concern for anyone looking at a new program. What we are doing is we are working with all the current providers to get a good understanding of how much they are charging the residents for the services provided. In most of these programs, I won't even say most, I'll say all the programs, and talking with the various providers, when you have a larger agreement, that's the ability to drive things down in cost, because there's a fee associated and a risk of the current provider sending out a couple hundred bills to several thousand bills in the collection versus just going to the city and billing directly that way. So I have seen in every instance when the city is the one that is providing the billing and the financial portion of the services, that we are able to do it at a lower cost than what is currently being provided. But that is certainly something that, as we collect the information of the services that the residents want, rolling out the costs is something that we will do, and certainly something that our elected officials are very aware of before they would vote anything in. All that would be publicly disclosed prior to any decisions being made.
Okay, and also, what is the amount of a fine for someone littering now? Not so much talking about bulk stuff, but let's say I did see a person throwing their Chick-fil-A bag or whatever out the window, snap a picture of their license plate number, give it to code enforcement, police. What is the amount of a fine for such a thing like that now?
Okay. I don't know what the exact dollar amount is for the Chick-fil-A bag that goes out the window, but I do know the court has the discretion of going all the way up to $1,000 on all of those type of fines. But I cannot, tell you an exact amount currently, but those are definitely things that we're looking at addressing, because we understand that, the first time, learn a lesson, it shouldn't be a financial devastation. We don't want anyone to have to choose between being a family and paying a fine. But certainly for those repeat offenders, I for one believe that, if you're caught more than once, the fine should be, significant within the law.
Okay, another question. In some cities, we have street sweepers. My community, I've been over here for 3 years. I have never seen a street sweeper come through and do any of the major roads, let alone any of the side roads. So is that something that this coordinator, this solid waste coordinator, is going to have some input into getting done for the city of South Fulton?
That is an excellent question and very timely. The city council and staff did a street sweeper presentation maybe about 3 weeks ago, where we had different trucks demonstrated. And the city currently does have in their capital budget a line item to purchase a couple of street sweepers. Now, with that said, I've worked throughout the great state of Georgia, and street sweeping services within the residential community does not typically happen frequently. Usually it's reserved for the commercial corridors and thoroughfares. However, I know our elected officials are looking at a model to provide the ability for the street sweeper to go through residential communities. But the frequency of that, has not been determined, just based on the fact that we do not have the trucks yet. But definitely a service that, if you live in a community that has a curb and gutter, the street sweepers are very efficient in not only removing any of the smaller debris, but also helping to prevent those dirt piles that eventually turn into a weed pile that blocks the stormwater from going into your drain. So it is a very good, effective program for those communities that do have the curb and gutter within the street. If you just have the open ditch where the asphalt just kind of hits directly to the grass, it's not as effective, but definitely something we will be looking at with a street sweeper program.
All right, thank you.
Next is Tommy Stegall.
Good evening, everyone. I came in a little late, so I think most of my questions have been answered, but I do still have two remaining concern. Number one is one of my questions was, where can I find a proposed model of what you plan on proposing? But I feel like you're not ready to have that for our viewing yet. But my question is, number one is, from a billing perspective, how will billing work for your new model that you may be proposing? I know those who have lived in other municipalities, sometimes if there is a late billing, that it can end up being a tax as opposed to a separate entity. So would this be considered a separate billing? And number two is homeowners who do not participate in the proposed model. Right now, I know homeowners who do not participate. How will you get those incorporated into the system? Because I stay in District 3.
Thank you. Let me answer those two questions. So right now, every resident is required to select a trash service. The problem is, since it's not under control of the city, certainly there's loopholes. People cannot sign up and not have that service and fall within that loophole. Under a model that we are reviewing, everybody would be billed for the service unless you file an exemption, such as the property is vacant, and things like that. But everybody would be required and everyone would be billed. The two most common methods for billing, or maybe I'll even use a third, is if the city provides a utility. I've seen it come on your water or sewer bill. However, the city of South Fulton does not provide utilities. Your water more than likely is provided by the city of Atlanta, and your sewer is provided by Fulton County. And however they combine those bills is outside the purview of the city of South Fulton. So the most effective model would be for us to send out a bill either annually or semi-annually for the solid waste services. Ms. Howe, is there another question?
Yes, my apologies. Angela James.
Yes, Mr. Toms, of course, I came to the meeting a little bit late, so I don't know if you discussed a better option for recycling out here. Is that a part of the plan? Mark Road is, I guess, I don't even want to say decent, is all we have. But is there a possibility that we could be better and possibly modeled like after the city of Alpharetta, or they do a great job too at the farmers market, indicator on Ponce de Leon? So that's my first question. Is there anything designed where we could have a better way to recycle and encourage people to come out and do recycling?
Let me address that question if you have more than one question. So in the survey, we certainly want to know the number of residents that are looking for the city to assist with providing a recycling program, whether that is household collections. A lot of cities, a lot of programs I manage, you got your 96-gallon cart with maybe a green lid for your household and a 96-gallon cart with a yellow lid for your recycling. You push them both out to the curb on the same day. One truck came by for your household, one truck came by for your recycling. I do know recycling is a great choice, for the environment and for future sustainability. But we also understand that not everybody will participate in that. So we definitely want to maximize the services based on the participation, because working with recyclers, what they tell me is if you had 10 people do it perfectly and that one person just threw a bunch of non-recyclables in that cart, it can contaminate the truck and cause issues during the recycling process. So we certainly want to make sure that the service is available for those that really would use it. The other option is to have more convenient recycling centers for those that are recycling minded, may have very little household trash, but a lot of recycling, to have something more convenient than Merck Mile in your community where you can drop it off if the curbside option is not a cost-effective option to pick up curbside recycling at your residence. So certainly if we move forward and we're unable to, due to cost or participation, provide for curbside, we are certainly looking at providing additional drop-off recycling points throughout the city.
Yeah, I just think, if everybody doesn't jump on board to this whole recycling thing, we'll look just like Kentucky a couple months ago, where the whole city was wiped out from Mother Nature. Like it's just a part of our lives now. We have to embrace it. And honestly, I think people wouldn't mind. I don't mind doing it at all, driving and sorting out my recycling, my recyclable things, just to be a better partner with nature. The second question is, I heard you mention PSAs. What type of public service things are you all doing? Are you partnering with the schools to teach children the importance of recycling and making it a part of their lives? Are we doing billboards to let people understand that we're not going to tolerate dumping and that kind of thing here? I know it sounds really elementary, but I think we got to start somewhere. We have to have a program of some sort where people understand that this is not a dumping ground out here. And starts with kids. Maybe they can shame their parents into not dumping things on the street. You just never know how to make a good start with something like that.
You're absolutely right that I think a lot of the successful programs do start with teaching those programs in the school and partnering with the schools, as well as other programs that the city in partnership with others can offer. I know in the past and right now, you should be able to find it on our website, and I'll, as we end this program, I'll let Miss Howe, who works in our communication department, address some of those. But I do know right now I've seen the schedule for, different community programs with our collection and pickup process. So I'll leave a little bit of time at the end to see if there's anything that she can add. But you're absolutely right. That is definitely a part of our program moving forward. And really up to this point, it's been a little bit of a staffing issue, which, I appreciate our mayor and council recognizing this problem, constantly striving for us to add better litter program and for helping us fund in our budget these much needed positions to provide for education and partnership for, helping our environment as we move forward. So definitely part of our program moving forward. And I think we are doing some of it now. And we'll see if she has any of that information available at this meeting. If not, we'll certainly get some additional information and resources up on our website. Thank you. Did you have a second part to your question?
I do, and I promise this is the last part. Well, actually I had two parts, but I'm not going to even go into the other one. However, I have a lot of people, throughout the country with great recycling programs. One example is Frisco, Texas, where with their recycling, say once a month, they have the opportunity as residents there to put large items out on the curb. And I think they do it in Detroit as well. Is there a possibility that we could possibly get something, something like that incorporated into our program, where
Abso-
people would have at least once a month to be able to put out larger items to get picked up?
Absolutely. So part of the program and in my presentation was bulk waste, and typically that is provided in most programs at least monthly. And
Mhm.
for those individuals that may have a special need, whatever it may be, that may need something beyond a monthly service, usually the once a month is provided at no additional cost as part of the program. But if you have a need for an additional pickup, usually there's a fee based on, um, 1 cubic yard of materials to be picked up. Now, with that said, I know most of your questions have been recycling minded, that if you put out an appliance such as a refrigerator or something metal,
Mhm.
those typically will get recycled back. But other things like, if the program was to allow for carpeting or mattresses or furniture, usually those are not cost effective for recycling, but the metal products certainly are.
Okay. All right, and I promise this is it. So is this the first real big meeting of this sort? Are we making a decision now as a community? Do we vote on it? Like, how does the next part of this process work?
So the way that I believe we're rolling it out, and we're definitely remaining fluid, is we've been having these meetings for the past 3 weeks. We've had one live meeting, most of them are virtual. The council would like to take this information, digest it, see what comments we're getting, look at a more definitive program structure for them to digest, and then give me feedback, to have additional meetings that will then say, this is the information we're receiving from the community. They definitely want the bulk waste. They definitely want some recycling. What does that structure look at? What does the baseline cost look like? That way, then we can put it back out and have some additional meetings with that additional program information. And then, of course, anything we do would be in a public voting session, and that would be announced in advance. And the public would be, again, allowed to have additional feedback and comments before the mayor and council do take that final vote and decision to roll out any new program. So yes, this is part of the first step in regards to building the program based on the needs and desires of the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Thoms, we don't have any other hands raised for questions or comments.
All right. And out
okay.
of respect for everybody, I know it was scheduled for an hour. If Councilmember Willis is still with us and would like to make any closing comments, if not, we will end the meeting. And again, the survey should pop up upon the conclusion of the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Howe, was there anything as far as programs that you're aware of the communication department has, is actively pushing out?
Well, we here in the communications department, just for everyone's edification, definitely make every attempt to support our council members in their cleanup efforts. I know that District 1 and District 4 always have ongoing cleanup opportunities. We also have our litter busters, which is a list of individuals that are volunteers for any citywide events that we may have. We are actually in the process of ramping our community engagement division of our communications department up as we speak. And we'll be beginning with our community garden, which is entitled the Dream Garden. So be on the lookout for that information. If anyone is interested in participating in Adopt a Road, any of the cleanup efforts that are going on within the districts, my suggestion would be make sure that you are engaged. And being engaged means being on our digital channels, that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor, and our mobile app, which is It's My Town. But if you go to our website, which is, of course, City of South Fulton, ga.gov, and click the connect link, it'll take you to all of those areas. As well as on our homepage of our website, we always make sure to post everything that's going on in the city, as well as the city calendar. So you'll be up to date on council meetings, events that the council members are doing district specific, as well as any citywide events that are going on. Thank you, Mr. Toms.
Thank you. With that, we thank everyone participating. Your feedback is very important to us, and continue to be on the lookout for future meetings.
Okay, everyone, enjoy your day, and thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us.